Welcome to the Kindness Project, the podcast designed to share stories of kindness and share how kindness can make positive change in our world, one small act at a time.
This episode of the Kindness Project was recorded live on Facebook during lockdown, which explains why we're probably still talking about being stuck indoors. I hope you're enjoying your time outside to the fullest, and thanks for listening to the Kindness Project. On the Kindness Project, we talk about lockdown hairdos, strange search engine histories, and we are joined by Chris Laney.
Good morning, welcome to morning dudes. Welcome to the live Kindness Project live on the on the 3rd of May. I'm joined by a girl with perhaps the most bizarre lockdown Google search history I've ever heard in my life. It's Charlotte Dames.
No, I'm joined by a man. You won't need to take a trip to the barber when this is all over. You won't have that much hair left. It's Chris Laney. I had to think of something.
I mean, I am particularly astute today because I haven't had a shave for a couple of days. I am going to be rectifying that. But you know what's weird? My hair is growing in all the places that I don't want it to grow. Do you know what I mean? That head hole I've got at the back is still there. Maybe I could do a comb over and just hide it a bit. We were also joined by an amazing guest this morning. One of the kindest people I know. It's Chris Laney. How are you, Chris?
I'm very well, Chris. Good morning, everybody.
Good. Morning. Just out of interest, I mean, Dave's quite has kept a lot of his hair, hasn't he? So he hasn't got a baldness problem like me, right?
He's got a haircut problem at the moment, though, because I've cut it.
Yeah. So I've got a baldness problem and an haircut problem. That's something to do.
Why? Because you haven't had one.
Because I haven't had an haircut and I'm still going bald. So it's like either one side's going to get there first or the other. Talk to me about your Google history.
My Google history? Well, I was trying to find this page I have in my Google history for jokes for the podcast, and I was just going through, reading them aloud. Pingu funny, fun family friendly jokes, how to divide reoccurring decimals, hilarious jokes.
This is your Google search history?
From my phone, yes.
Okay, go on then.
Sea Angel gifs, cast of King Falls AM, Trump News Live. He was being so stupid.
Right, okay. So, unofficial question of the podcast is, what's the strangest thing you've searched for on the internet recently in the last few weeks? Chris, have you been searching for anything unusual on the internet?
No, not really. I did search for something a bit strange last night. The central heating wasn't working, and we didn't have a name on the controller, so I just put the number in, and it all came up on YouTube. So that was amazing.
You know what? Fixing boilers, all you need to do is Google the make and model of the boiler and you get a video to potentially fix it. As long as you're not doing anything too technically complex, because clearly you're better off getting an engineer to do that, aren't you? Or just do it yourself, Charlotte.
Do it yourself. Have a go.
Working properly.
Yeah.
Turns the boiler on and off. So
yeah.
So that was good.
Well, apparently, even if it's technically complex, what you recommend, do it yourself. Do it. I'm not advocating that behaviour, just to be clear. The official question of the podcast is a good one today, and not one of our sort of just fluffy light ones like flavours of crisp or flavours of ice creams. This is one you actually need to think about. The question of the podcast today is, if you could meet any historical figure, who would you meet and what would you ask them? And that is I'm finding that question really tough. How about you? What would your answer be?
I don't know. Who would I meet? Who's important enough? Oh, this is a new tablecloth.
Would you meet Mum to find out where she got this tablecloth from?
No, I can just ask her when she comes back.
Give it some thought. How about you, Chris? Who would you meet and what would you ask them?
I think with all the recent things that are going on, I would probably want to meet Florence Nightingale.
Oh, good choice. What would you ask her?
I would ask her how tough it was when it all started, because it's quite tough at the moment, and maybe we could learn.
Yeah, I mean, I think like just when I look at what we're going through at the minute, the fact that we've got a lot more creature comforts in 2020 that we didn't have when Florence Nightingale was around, or even 20, 30 years ago, I think we underestimate how difficult it was back then, right?
Yeah, definitely. So I think it might put some sort of perspective on what we're going through.
Yeah, no, great answer to that.
I know too many strange facts about Florence Nightingale.
What do you know about Florence Nightingale?
So I already waved to those people.
Oh, right, okay.
That was just earlier. So like, people often found her difficult to work with. She was highly religious.
Okay.
She wasn't a person of like scientific belief.
Okay.
But the reason she did all the cleaning and stuff was because she believed in like miasma, and she believed that if you clean stuff, the smell would go away, and that's why she did it, not because she believed in the theory of the germ theory.
Okay.
Or the theory of spontaneous generation, but spontaneous generation was debunked around that time. She also almost married a gay porn collector, and she
That is a weird fact.
She used to send letters flirting to the younger nurses.
Did she? Oh, right, okay. I've learned a lot more about Florence Nightingale than I did. You know what? Weirdly, my question to Florence Nightingale might not be how she coped. It might have been about some of those intricacies about her life.
Even from like her deathbed when she was like 70 or something. I can't remember how old she was when she died, but like she still flirted with all the nurses in the training school. Like,
amazing. You know what? There's nothing wrong with flirting with a nurse. You know what? I give blood, right? I give blood probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 times a year. One of the simple things you can do to be kinder, you know, like just giving blood and helping the NHS with their supplies. And I think, apart from the free biscuits, the only other reason that I go is to have a little flirt with a nurse. I love it.
okay, here's an upside about giving blood during, this whole crisis. So in some places where it wasn't illegal, but where if you were gay, you had to wait 3 months after having intimate reactions with intimate reactions with another person of the same gender. You couldn't give blood if you'd give. It's now been up to 12.
Okay.
So because of the crisis, and I saw someone on the news report that was on. Someone put the coronavirus is beating homophobia.
The coronavirus is helping homophobia. Yeah, it's all good. Have you? What's your opinion about flirting with nurses, Chris? Have you been guilty of that?
Well, probably more doctors for me.
Look, whatever medical professional.
I would definitely flirt with them. You might get better attention.
Yeah, whatever. Look.
Let's go and let the talk.
Whatever medical professional floats your boat. Do you know what I mean? Nurses, doctors.
It's captains that float boats.
True. Hello to Sarah. Hello to Russ. Hello to Desmond.
Morning, dudes.
Morning, Desmond. Morning, Alan. Morning, Tina. Morning, Alan again. We're popular with Alans this morning, which is good. Morning, Jane. Morning, Trev. Morning, Lorraine. Thanks for watching, Lisa. Morning. Morning to Danny. And morning to Roberta and Sarah. Really appreciate you joining us on this bright Sunday morning. So, question of the podcast again is what historical figure would you like to meet, and what question would you actually ask them? Can you let people know where they can tell us?
Right, so if you're watching this currently, welcome, you're on our Facebook. Well done, guys. No sarcasm intended, I know that came off kind of sarcastic, so sorry. But if you're not, just search the Kindness Project podcast and it should be the first one that comes up, although our internet is being kind of slow today. I don't know where that's going, but you know what? On Twitter, we are at Ola Kindness, and I don't know who mans our Twitter, but I assume it's the same person who does everything.
Ross, I think. Yeah.
We have an Instagram. I think it's the Kindness Project, but you know what? We don't post frequently on there, so
but you can find every single episode from every single podcast we've ever done, and we're up to about 120 now on the Kindness Project website www.thekindnessproject.co.uk. Audio downloads have gone through the roof, so we're getting about
because people are bored, aren't they?
Yeah, clearly bored enough to listen to us, but yeah, we're getting about 1,200 downloads a day. at the minute, which is an incredible number. So if you've recently found the podcast through Facebook Live and you've started listening to the audio version, thank you for doing that. We really appreciate your support, and hopefully our stories of people doing amazing stuff in the world is brightening up your day. Now, Chris, you've been listening to the podcast for a while, haven't you? Because I told you about it. I think it was about a year and a half ago we started talking about the podcast, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a long time ago, Chris.
Yeah.
I think I was interviewed a very long time ago.
Well,
when you first started.
Well, I mean, we've been running the podcast now every single week for two and a bit years.
You say that like we actually do one of these every single week and don't backlog stuff.
Yeah, we just get together like once every couple of weeks and just record loads, don't
yeah.
we? Yeah. So apart from on lockdown, where
we're recording 3 times a week.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do before we come on to interview you, Chris, because I'm really interested in hearing your insights on kindness. We've got a correspondent who helps us out with sharing some of the stories of positivity and finding some of those stories. A guy called Dave Forsdyke, who I've known for many years now, and he's coming on the podcast next week. I think it's Tuesday, so we're looking forward to speaking to. I don't know. Oh, it's Russ. Russ really should be hosting a podcast, shouldn't he?
It's like what was I going to say about? He's like a producer.
Producer Russ. Yeah, he's been promoted then because he was the editor, and now he's the producer.
You can be both.
Editor and producer. So Dave's mentioned some silver linings. Mental health charity The Blurred Line Group has set up the Chit Chat service to provide support for those who are lonely in their homes, particularly those in vulnerable health and the over 70s. It aims to encourage more casual conversations during these isolated times and can also help isolated people with food and household supplies, someone to do their shopping and people to check in on them to make sure they're okay. It's available 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day and is manned by volunteers. If you're in that segment and you are feeling isolated, you can just give them a call. Their number is 0333 002 003 and they're on Twitter at
Chit Chat Britain.
Chit Chat Britain. I like their Twitter handle. It's a good one.
Is that a Twitter handle or an Instagram handle?
I don't know. We'll soon find out. Do you want to do the next one?
It's probably Twitter.
Go on then.
Okay. The coastal city of Aarhus. I assume that's how it's
I only give you the ones that are difficult to pronounce. Do you know that?
No, because I refuse to do them usually.
The coastal city of Aarhus in Denmark
has launched a new concert series where fans drive up to the venue and remain safely isolated in their cars.
liveforlivemusic.com, and we all need a good laugh to cheer us up at www.nextupcomedy.com, supporting comedians who can't work at the moment by streaming stand-up shows online for a small fee. Comedy stars like Andy Parsons, Ed Byrne, Gina Yash, Ray, Hal Crittenden and Andrew Maxwell are all getting involved, so that sounds really, really good.
And we've been tagged in it again.
And today's silver linings are: staying at home is encouraging bands and musicians all over the world to entertain us online. New lockdown versions of old songs are appearing and making us smile. I hope you're enjoying them too. Now, I don't know about you, but music, I'm really loving. Like, sort of.
I heard you listen to Sleeping at Last this morning.
I know that I was doing some writing, so that was my sort of just background music. You know what I've been loving as well. Weirdly, because I've been writing over the next couple of days for the Kindness Project book. Out, don't know when, probably in a couple of years. You know that rainforest music you get. No, you're not a fan.
No.
I'm loving that at the minute.
Makes me need to use the toilet.
Well, constantly. But yeah, so that rainforest. What do you listen to when you're working, Chris?
Oh, I just ask Alexa to play what I fancy on the day.
Yeah. So the weird thing is, if I'm listening to. The problem is, if I'm listening to music that I'm really into, I get distracted by the music.
Do you?
So I need like something in the background that like is just there. Do you know what I mean? So
we're very different types of working music people.
Go on then, what working music have you got?
I get like stuff that I really get into and I'm sitting there going like this, yeah!
Sorry, why do you work screaming like a banshee? Sorry, you go like that, yeah!
Banshee screams are high pitched.
Alright, okay. Yeah. So what kind of music you're going to go back to 70s rock, aren't you?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with like anything like that.
So go on, what's on your working music playlist?
So like stuff like, I don't know if it's 70s rock, but like the Blue Oyster Cult, is that 70s rock? Yeah. Like Kansas and...
Yeah. What's on your working play? What music comes up that you really enjoy, Chris?
Me? Well, I like all the soul stuff, really, Chris, and Tamla Motown.
Oh.
And I like so many different music. I love Andrea Bocelli, so I often listen to him. So it's also, I like all music, a bit like you guys, really.
Yeah. So unofficial question of the podcast number 2 is, what's on your working music playlist? So when you're working from home, what have you got on your playlist?
I have this really weird study playlist, and it's made up of songs that remind me of things I need to be studying. Well, I don't need to be studying them anymore, obviously, but like I had a playlist and it was all like the Macbeth soundtrack, Jekyll and Hyde musical. Yeah. That's a good musical, by the way.
You like a lot of musical playlists.
I like a lot of musicals. Yeah. And like it's got like We Didn't Start the Fire, because obviously I was doing history and we did the Cold War. Yeah. So I had Two Tribes and We Didn't Start the Fire.
Two Tribes. Frankie Goes to Hollywood. That is an amazing
and I had
song.
like loads of They Might Be Giants, because they do some science songs that are quite funky and easy to remember some of the stuff for science.
If you didn't know Charlotte was a bit of a geek, you do now.
I thought that was obvious.
So, what I want to do, that's Dave For's like Sunday Silver Linings. Thank you for that, and we're looking forward to having Dave on the show next week. Want to talk to our guest today, Chris, about the amazing work she does in local communities, particularly around supporting community groups and the work she does around there. So thank you for getting up on a Sunday morning and joining us, Chris. We really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Chris. Love Your Kindness podcast. It's wonderful. It cheers us all up. And you and Charlotte together are wonderful. So... yeah, it's my pleasure.
Really?
Wonderful. You mean a house on fire? Same amount of property damage.
Anyway, tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, a little bit about me is my background is all business. So I worked in the business community for over 20 years. I did cultural change, leadership development and coaching. So that's kind of my past work. And then I decided that I wanted to work with people that maybe needed help, or, you know, people that couldn't afford maybe to have classes and workshops and things like that. So I started to look for funding, and it sort of snowballed, really. We did a project for ladies in recovery of drug and alcohol. Okay. Then we did another project where we worked with ladies that needed some self-esteem, so we did self-esteem classes, and we did all sorts of stuff. But my very first project was a reminiscence project that I did for the council, and I absolutely loved hearing people's stories and helping them to make memory books for their family. So we then took that a step further to the project that we've just finished, that is still currently running an exhibition in Eastbury Manor House, and I believe they're going to put the exhibition online because it's very user friendly, and there's lots of lovely stories that come with the exhibition. Yeah. So that's the kind of work I do. I also do one-to-one coaching with people, and I've been doing some free coaching since lockdown with people that are really struggling to be alone. So that's kind of the work I do and the work I love to do. Yeah. I've met some amazing people through doing my projects, you know, some in their 90s and They've told us their life stories, which are all archived at Valence House Museum. So it's just been a privilege, really, to have done this project for the last year and a half.
Yeah. So how did you get into this kind of work? I know you sort of left business. What made you decide that coaching, but particularly and specifically with the reminiscence work, how did that start?
Well, it started because I went to Australia. My uncle was ill, and he's been a great support to us all our lives. And when I got there, he really wasn't very well. And I'd lost my mum. So I said to Uncle George when I arrived, he wasn't in a great place. So the next morning I said to him, have you got any pictures of Mum? So he said, yes. So he got all his pictures out. And we started chatting, and he started telling me things that I didn't know about our family. And it just lifted his mood.
Yeah.
And then his daughter arrived, and she didn't know anything about really Uncle George's life in the UK, because he went to Australia. He made quite a lot of money, and here he was just a working class boy that struggled. So when she ever asked about what was your mum like, he'd say it was just Mum. But obviously she got to know about his mum, because I'd tell her, you know, what Nanny used to do and this, that and the other. And I realised how powerful it was.
Yeah.
So when I came back from Australia, I read Tender, and it was about engaging people that were isolated, and I thought that a reminiscence project would be a wonderful way to engage people, to get them to come every week and talk about their lives. So we themed the weeks, and they brought photographs, and then we helped them and taught them how to do American style scrapbooks. So they made a book for their family, and at the end we had a celebration where their family came along and saw all their work.
You know what's interesting? Because I know you've been posting this on Facebook, and when you did, Cassie decided that she wanted to do it, and we've got in our little office at the back of the house, we've got all of our old photos, and you know what was surprising? It's amazing how evocative thinking about the past brings those memories back, particularly happy ones. It also reminded me that I had some really bad suits when I was 20.
You should see some of the pictures I keep for myself.
What would you? Of who? Of me?
For us. I have this one where we went ice skating and I fell over and you were just kind of there standing over me while I'm on the floor.
Well, I didn't pick you up or anything.
I think you were trying, but I just was just like...
Oh. Okay, so it's like those photos are particularly powerful. But what's interesting is the things that bring back memories, because it's not only certainly it's the stories we tell, but also like it can be weird sounds. So Sophie found this website the other day called the Museum of Endangered Sounds. So like the sort of sounds we don't hear anymore. Now I'm an 80s kid, so for me, like sort of Space Invaders is one of those sounds that brings back memories. And there was a little machine. I don't know if you remember this, Chris, from the 80s, called a Speak and Spell. They used to teach kids how to spell words. Just the sound of that when it turned on just took me back to when I was like 8 or 9 again. It's that remembering sounds and looking at pictures is really powerful, right? Do you use sounds in the work you do as well?
No, we just use people's voices that when they tell their stories. That's what our exhibition's about.
Yeah,
it's the people telling their stories in their own words, not change, and it's really interesting when you hear they have to say, because it's a lot of stuff that we just take for granted. But what did provoke a lot of conversation in the last groups that we did, we had this wonderful lady and she baked.
Okay.
So she made cakes every week for us. And the smell of her cakes reminded me of my grandma, and that reminded the people in the room of lots of times that they'd had, especially bread pudding and things like that. So she made all the old favourites that we don't actually have anymore.
Yeah.
And it made me think about baking. So while we've been in lockdown, I've been actually doing a bit of baking.
You know what?
So is really, really strong reminders to people.
Yeah, definitely. Talk to me a bit about how reminiscence makes us happier.
Now, reminiscence can make us happy, and it can sometimes bring back memories that are not so happy. So reminiscence, I think, for me, is a really powerful tool. So when I put the pictures on Facebook, they were of my family and my friends, and they shared them with their family and friends, and it created a lot of chat about, I didn't realise that you had straight hair when you were in the 1980s and things like that. It's a really powerful way of engaging at a really light, lovely level.
Yeah.
And I think at the moment there's so much gloom that actually if you get all your old photos out and you start to share them with people that they mean something to,
yeah,
it creates a lot of chat and a lot of happiness.
Yeah.
And that's why I started to get my pictures out, because I thought, I'm in lockdown and actually I do all this stuff with everyone else's pictures.
But you don't do it with yourself, yeah.
So, and I talked to Cassie about it, and she's been putting pictures on, which have been really powerful.
She has.
So, the power of reminiscence is huge, and also with the crafting side of it. So if you decide to put them in a book, it's very therapeutic because you're sitting, you're relaxing, you're deciding what to do with your picture. So I have been sort of delivering a bit of resource to people that are stuck indoors, that have been through the project, so they can add to their books. So it's sort of giving them something to do as well.
And not one that I've included in your questions list, but just one out of interest, because you've got a coaching background. Help me understand how that's helping both you and others in the current situation, and any practical tips you can share with people to help them cope with what's going on currently.
Yeah, I think the biggest tip I would give is not looking at what we can't do or what we usually do, but looking at what we can do and how that could also help others.
Yeah.
So we get caught up in our heads thinking about, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, but I can't go out, I can't go here, I can't see this person. And instead of actually really getting caught up in our heads around what we can't do, what can we do and how can we change what we do?
Yeah.
So we can often make a change and it won't be the same, but it could be as powerful.
Yeah, and
that's kind of how I look at this lockdown for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's that focus on doing things that are like sort of, yes, there are things that we can't do now, but there's plenty that actually we've got a bit more time to do. And certainly for us, doing the Kindness Project Live's been one of those changes, haven't it? Mm-hmm. Like, it's been quite good fun doing it live. Talk to me a little bit about the project you did for Eastbury Manor, because I visited, and it was amazing to see not only the people whose stories you told, their experiencing sort of those memories, but also how you sort of merged the sounds and the stories and the photos. Tell me a little bit about what the reaction was to that.
So the reaction was actually much. I thought it would be a great project, but it was a really, really great project. And we actually merged young and old people as well. So we worked with the school, but none of that was displayed, or the pictures of the children, because we weren't allowed to do that, obviously, through the school. But that was really powerful because they actually came to our celebration weeks, the children, and spoke to the older people about their projects, which was wonderful. And I think that the thing that we did, which we didn't imagine we would do, is we reunited some family members that had not seen one another for over 20 years. And it was one lady that was in her 90s and her cousin who was in his late 70s. So that was quite amazing, really. And the gentleman that we reunited, we did at home. And I was just telling the ladies in the group that I'd interviewed this amazing man who had a British Empire medal. And this lady perked up and said, Iris perked up and said, his name's not Fred, is it? And I said, yes. He's my cousin. I've been wondering about him. So we got him to come to the launch of the exhibition.
And she was there as well.
And we united them, which was wonderful.
Oh, I love
so
that story.
A lot of things happened that I didn't imagine would happen. There's some great friendships come out of it. People keep in touch together without me, which is fantastic, especially through lockdown, because I've been ringing them all, and we've now got a chat group, so we're chatting on WhatsApp, which one of the ladies set up, so we're on that daily, showing pictures what we're making. It got people also interested in craft again. So people that maybe hadn't done any craft, putting their pictures in their albums, they started to make cards and do all sorts of things. And I think the power of seeing the pictures just as they were, back in the day, for young people that live in that area now, has been amazing. Yeah. And I go to the house every other Thursday, and when I'm there, often people ask me about the exhibition, and I talk them through it. Yeah. So it exceeded my expectation, and I think everyone else. And it was supposed to come out in September, and the house have kept it, and I believe they're going to keep it as an exhibition forever, because it is about the local people, and it's about social local history, which I think is something that we undervalue, which I certainly did until I did this project.
100%. We focus on the kings and queens and prime ministers and leaders. What we forget is that sort of where we actually come from, and remembering the experiences of the people who and the environments we lived in, right? Particularly even if it's 2 generations back, and how different their life was.
Yeah, I mean, one of the ladies, there's one quote on the wall. She worked at Woolworths in Barking, and she did the makeup counter, and she was like really good at it. And when Basildon store was opening, they asked her to go there, and she said, I didn't know if I needed a passport. Further than East there. Yeah. And obviously she did it, and I said, well, what was the biggest thing that you found? She went, I couldn't go home for lunch. Yeah. And you forget that people used to go home for lunch. Yeah. So we all run and buy a sandwich, but actually it wasn't like that. You'd go home for your hour's lunch.
Well, you know what? You know what? 2 things there. Number 1, pick a mix. Like, pick a mix started in Woolworths, didn't it? Yeah. That was where it was started. And I used to go home from school. I mean, you wouldn't dream of doing this now, but even at secondary school, my nan lived round the corner from the school, and I used to go home, go to my nan's house every day.
We weren't even allowed out the gate.
I had a cooked lunch every single day when I was a kid, because I used to go around my nan's. Talk to me a little bit about how you think kindness has changed in the current situation, because I know that, and again, we're focused on finding examples of this sort of stuff, but I think that kindness has taken a bit of a forefront in this current situation, because we seem to be being better to each other at the minute. What's your favourite examples of kindness at the minute, Chris?
Well, I think so I ring everybody every week, and I didn't ring everyone this Friday because Dave wasn't very well, and he had to go to the hospital, and I was worried, and my phone rang, and it was one of my ladies that I've known for about 7 years, and she said, I thought I'd ring you today to see how you are, because you haven't phoned us, and there's obviously something wrong. Yeah. So, and I also put on my chat group that Dave wasn't very well, and they were so kind and so supportive, and I think you forget how much kindness is actually out there on your doorstep, and people, I think, have become politer. So when I go out to the shops, I think the social distancing has made people much politer and kinder. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people that I've met, and I think people are asking much more. So when we go out and clap, how are you coping? I think there's a lot of kind people around that we maybe never recognised before. You know, they didn't have the opportunity to ask or felt that they were in that position.
Yeah.
I think we should embrace kindness because it's all around us.
Yeah. I think a lot of it's down to perspective as well, right? So I think people are sort of kind by nature, but sometimes we just need to give people the opportunity to be kinder, and certainly the work you do helps that. Just help me understand, Chris, what's the story, in terms of the work you do, what story best describes the impact it makes?
I think it connection. So lots of people I work with probably wouldn't see anybody maybe for the whole week, just, you know, maybe their family members on a Saturday. And I think the connection that people get from coming to the groups is amazing, because when you talk about a photograph and it's your photograph and everybody listens, you feel really valued and heard.
Yeah.
I think sometimes as we get older, we don't feel that. And, you know, if somebody comes, they think... So I'll give you an example. One of my ladies said, well, my daughter comes every Saturday, but I don't really see her because she cleans and tidies up and does the shopping. And so I said, well, what would you like her to do? And she said, I'd just like her to sit and have a chat with me.
Yeah.
And I said, but if you don't tell her, she won't know. So the next week she came, she said, I told my daughter. So I said, did you? What did she say? She said, well, perhaps I could come one day, Mum, and do your work, and one day we could come and I could just have a nice chat with you.
Oh, love that.
So, you know, that I maybe teach people that if we don't ask for what we want, we don't get it.
Yeah.
We're given. And I think as you get older, that happens a lot. And, you know, when you sort of talk, if you said to somebody of 80, I'm going to coach you on how to maybe connect it a different way with your family, they wouldn't be interested. But actually, it's very subtle.
Yeah.
And it is about us asking for what we want, because sometimes we think, you know, we're mind readers, but you know, with our other halves, you know, it's my birthday, I'd like a big cake and a bit of fuss. Comes in, he goes, hello love, have you had a nice birthday, and give you a kiss on the head. But actually we haven't described what we want. Yeah. We expect people to read our minds, don't we?
Yeah, I think that's a really fair point, and I think you're right. It's interesting where currently we've got a bit more time on our hands. That busyness thing, always keeping busy, is less of a focus, and maybe that's why we're seeing people be a bit kinder to each other, because they're spending a bit more time connecting and engaging. And I love that story, because the daughter had all the best intentions, didn't she? But she didn't know that was important to her mum.
Yeah, for her mum, she wanted her to be clean and tidy, and she wanted to have her to have the shopping she wanted, but her mum wanted her. And, you know, we have to ask for what we want. And that happened quite a lot in, you know, the sessions. People would sort of say something and we might say, well, you need to tell them.
Yeah.
And then everyone sort of got into the habit of saying, oh, I asked my daughter or my son or whatever to do something. And I go, that's great.
Yeah. I mean, the worst that's going to happen is they'll say no, right? But I think often with...
You know, you can't leave the washing up like that, Mum. You have to do it, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, just let's sit down and have a chat that means nothing, but also a lot.
Yeah, it means everything to people. Yeah. Communication and touch and all those sort of things mean everything. That
touch is an interesting one, because I'm quite an extrovert. I'm quite a tactile person, and the weird thing I'm missing the most is just being able to give people a hug and a kiss every now and again. Like, I mean, clearly the family are getting their fair share, but everybody else, I can't do it anymore. How are you? Because you're quite tactile, aren't you? How are you coping with that?
Oh, poor Dave's getting it all. Every time I go past him, I touch him. He goes, will you leave me alone?
He's cuddled out. He's cuddled out, Chris. You've cuddled him way too much. I suppose...
my dad's had the coronavirus and he's been quite poorly, and I can only see him through the window. So that's quite difficult for me, because I just want to get in there and give him a big kiss and a cuddle.
Yeah.
But, you know, the things, like I say, I can go and see him through the window. So for me, at the moment, that's great. So it's a bit about changing what we did.
Yeah.
But it is very difficult if you're a tactile person.
Yeah. I suppose it's difficult to answer at the minute because we're still in a bit of a state of limbo. But what's next for the work you do?
Well, I have got a few ideas, and one of them is that I would like to do a project about lockdown. So what we learned, how we changed, what happened for everybody in different generations during lockdown. I think that would be a great project, and I think it would be a real bit of social history going forward as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think by the time, maybe if I didn't do it, maybe at the end of this, we might leave it so long that people will forget. It won't be fresh, and you know what really happened. Yeah. So that's kind of something that I'm looking at. But I am writing a bid to work. The Becontree estate is 100 years old. Next year.
Okay.
So I would like to do some form of reminiscence, oral history around that. Because that, you know, Becontree was the biggest council estate ever built. And, you know, it's got lots and lots of wonderful stories and wonderful people. So that is what I'm looking at the moment.
Okay. And where can people find out a bit more about you and your work?
Well, I have got a website. You can go on there. It's www.positivechangeconsultancy.com, and you can call me and, you know, ask me anything about my work, or if you needed some help with something, especially while we are in lockdown. I'm happy to chat with anybody, or if you know somebody that's in need, then please contact me. I don't know if you give my phone number out, Chris, or would you like me to do that now?
Yeah, we can. What we'll do, Chris, we'll put it on the show notes. We'll get Raz to do it, but we'll make sure that if people do need to get in touch, your contact details are definitely available. And it's really interesting because that question of the podcast that we've got today, you know, who would you speak to in history and what would you ask them? The work that Chris does, the amazing work that Chris does, some of those stories would be lost if it wasn't for the work that Chris does, because we cannot we don't preserve enough stories and learn the lessons from people in the past. So thanks. I mean, that project, if you're in our particular part of East London and you get the opportunity to go to Eastbury House, when we're out of lockdown, can people visit anytime? When is Eastbury Manor House embarking open for people to come and visit?
It's open Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Sundays. But hopefully they're going to put the exhibition online, Chris. They called me on Friday, so I'm going to send them over a load of stuff. And we're going to hopefully put the exhibition online for people to see.
Amazing.
Watch this space.
Cool. So when that happens, let us know and we'll be sure to mention it on the Kindness Project again. So that's all good. What stories have you got from lockdown at the minute? Have you got anything that...
Nah, not really. I'm just sitting, writing, studying.
Yeah. Just.
What are you asking, Charlotte?
What am I writing?
Yeah.
I'm trying to write a book because I just like writing and I want to publish it. So
yeah, you work on your book at the minute, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay, so question of the podcast. Should we do some answers?
When did you post this?
Yesterday. So we've got a few answers. So just as a reminder, morning Trev, morning Nick, morning Tracy, morning to everybody who's watching us right now. Thank you for tuning in on Sunday morning, and thank you again for sharing the Kindness Project with your friends. We said at the start we're getting sort of huge numbers of people download it every day now. So saying that, I don't know whether there's like we're getting 1,300 odd downloads a day. I don't know whether that's just 13 people downloading every single episode. We just don't know. Probably not. But
the maths is a bit off.
Yeah, if you are finding the Kindness Project for the first time and enjoying it, we thank you. Tony Slimmins had our first Twitter answer to question in the podcast. He'd asked Edison, did you really fail 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb? And if so, what kept you going through all those failures? I think Tony said, I think many people stop digging 5 feet from the gold mine till they reach success after years of hard work and miss out on the success because they just give up too soon. I think that's a good lesson to learn. Apart from Florence Nightingale, who would you like to speak to in history, Chris?
Apart from Florence Nightingale, there's so many people really. I'd like to speak to Gandhi. That would be a good one.
Okay, and what would you ask Gandhi?
I think a bit about enlightenment from his point of view, because I think it would probably be quite different to what we hear now. So, I don't know.
Yeah, and have you thought of an answer yet, Charlotte?
I don't know.
What does it mean to you?
I was thinking maybe someone involved with the starting of the NHS, like Clement Attlee or Nye Bevan.
And what would you ask them?
I'd probably ask Nye Bevan how much he paid the doctors, because there's a famous quote about him stuffing their mouths with gold to get them to work for the NHS.
Right, okay, so how much... You could probably find out how much doctors were paid.
Yeah, probably. It was giveaways to a question, but you know what?
No, it's all good, all good. So, another few answers we've got. Simon Frankel said, I'd asked Nelson Mandela how he managed to not be bitter and resentful for being imprisoned for so long. I hold grudges against people who slow me down in a coffee queue, which is frustrating, but isn't like decades in Robben Island, is it? Like, I mean, in perspective, just waiting in a coffee queue. But yeah, I mean, I think Mandela certainly is somebody I'd like to ask questions of. I've actually been to Robben Island in Cape Town, and just the conditions there are sort of not great. And the weird thing about that is, and there's an amazing documentary I think the BBC did 10 years ago on Mandela, where when he came into power, he had the opportunity to either imprison the people who were responsible for apartheid or actually forgive them as long as they came and told their stories of why they acted in a certain way. Now that takes bravery and courage, doesn't it? Because the natural human reaction is to go, right, you are responsible for a crime against humanity, we're going to lock you up. To not do that at that point in history is interesting.
Like with the Pope.
Would Mandela be on your list, Chris?
Yeah, it would.
Oh. And what would you...
Castro, I'd quite like to have a chat with him as well.
Yeah, well, you know what? Sometimes it's the leaders in history we respect but might not always agree with are going to be quite interesting as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Louise.
Perspective on it is probably completely different to what we imagine.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's. Sometimes we forget we're all heroes of our own story, so even people we don't agree with will have their own reasons why they do stuff. Louise McNamee said, that's really difficult. I'd ask Muhammad Ali which of his accomplishments he was proud of and why, and she'd also have questions for Abraham Lincoln and George Best. Danny Willis said, I'd ask Martin Luther King how he found the courage to do what he did. Steve Dan said he'd love to ask Hitler why.
Well, there's loads of documentaries on it, aren't
there? Chris Haycock said he'd asked Jesus why he disappeared for 18 years and what did you get up to? Okay, fair enough. Good one. Sean Atson said, Churchill, how close in your mind in those dark days of 1940 was your mind to losing the war? You know, how far did you get to think you were losing the war? Trev said, Neil Armstrong, what was the first moonwalk experience like? I think that would be an amazing question. Tracy said, I'd ask Isaac Newton, would you have introduced isolation as part of the Black Death, the plague? And is that what you would have called lockdown now? And Dunkirk said, Emmeline Pankhurst, firstly, she'd like to thank her. And secondly, would she have ever imagined women would become world leaders? I think there's some amazing questions there. So thank you for all your contributions as always.
I've been spending a lot of time on Google learning about like loads of random like people.
Who have you been learning about?
I don't know. The first man to ever successfully complete a C-section where the woman who gave birth survived, and he was apparently a gay transgender man with a dog named Psyche.
That fact is really interesting.
Yeah.
The dog named Psyche, I love that.
And every time the dog died, he just replaced it with another dog called Psyche.
Replacing it with a dog of the same name is the fact that I'm going to remember from that story. So thank you, Chris, for joining us on the Kindness Project. We really appreciate it. Thanks for coming back. We've really enjoyed the stories, and if you're out there and you like Chris's work, we'll make sure that we share it. Thank you once again.
You're welcome. Thank you, Chris, for having me and Charlotte.
Oh, we never end a podcast though now, especially live ones, without a joke of the day. Prepare Chris to be either overwhelmed or underwhelmed with emotion. I can't guarantee what emotion that's going to be at this point in time. Normally it's apathy, but we'll see how we go. Do you want to tell your joke?
Yeah, okay. Why did the robber take a bath?
I don't know. Why did the robber take a bath?
He wanted to make a clean getaway.
I like it.
I'm not convinced. And on that note, have a lovely Sunday. Hope you have a really amazing day, and we'll see you next week for more Kindness Project Live.
Bye.
Bye.